Hello, everyone. Glad you are here. Looks like we've already got some people waiting on the stream. I see some comments from Jack. Hello, Jack. I am doing very well. I am had a very good week so far and a very good weekend. I just finished a book today, so I'm doing very well. And it was a book I enjoyed, which helped out a lot. What I thought we'd do is, if you have any questions, you can put them in the live stream for discussion. And then also, if you plan to if you don't have any questions, I will go and I have some topics that I want to discuss. But if you do have questions, I will try to answer them, especially if they're book related. So I thought I'd begin by talking about some anticipated books for next year. This year in December, there are only two more books that are like new releases that I plan to read. We have the new Stormlight Archive book, which is Wind and Truth, that comes out, and then the penultimate Icarus Saga book by Timothy Zahn comes out in 2024, and then we get into next year in 2025. Oh, hello, Lisa. Great to see you here. Always appreciate you commenting on the videos. So for 2025, I already we still don't even know all the books that are planning to release all through the rest of 2025 because there's still a lot left to be announced. But I really have through the summer planned, and that's 20 books already. So it's going to be a very busy year of new releases coming out next year. At the beginning, in February, we have Reign of the Empire, which is The Mask of Fear, which is the new Star Wars book, the start of a trilogy. The first book's by Alexander Freed. I'm very interested in that book. It's very politically focused. Coming out right before Andor releases on April 22nd. This comes out in February, so it's a good lead-in. I hope that it's actually connected to Andor. We also have Gallifile, the first Druids of Shannara, book number 1, by Terry Brooks. A new Shannara series. It's been, I think the last one finished in 2020. So it's been, like 5 years since that last book. So I'm really excited that that book comes out. Oh, we got another comment. Spectacular Webhead. Oh, great to see you. It's always great to talk with you. It says, I'm about to finish the Icarus plot and I'm really enjoying it. I'm so glad. Remind me, Spectacular Webhead, had you read Icarus Hunt at all, or were you going straight into the saga with this? And if so, what do you think of the twists so far in the book without releasing them? Yes, Jack, Andor, we just found out this weekend that it looks like it's going to come out April 22nd is the when Andor season 2 will release. So this December we have Skeleton Crew, and that'll go from December to January. Most likely, and then we have April is the Andor season 2. I don't think we're going to get an animated series in between, so probably the next animated series at earliest will be in the fall or something. But I'm really excited that we're getting Andor season 2 soon, because boy, does the fandom need it. We need something jubilant to help us out. So let's see. We talked about we have the Star Wars Reign of Fear book. We have Gallifile. We also have a Hunger Games prequel that comes out next year. That comes out March 18th. That is supposed to be the book that is about Haymitch and the 50th games, which I'm very interested to read that. I do find him a very interesting character. We also have a book by Mary Robinette Kowal, who I've reviewed her books before on the channel. Her Lady Astronaut books are really entertaining, and her next book is The Martian Contingency, which releases in March, and it's been like about 4 or 5 years since that last book came out. So I'm excited for that. And then going into the late spring, early summer, we also have some of the higher public books that are winding down. We have Into the Light, which is by Claudia Gray, a YA book in April. We have A Valiant Vow in May. And we also have a new Acolyte book in May on the same day, both by Justina Ireland. That's books Wayseeker. And then we also have coming out in the summer, I think in June, is Trials of the Jedi. So that's High Republic's winding down, and it'll be a big epic finale, I think. Lisa says, thanks, Jonathan. My TBR continues to grow after watching each of your videos. Oh, thank you, Lisa. That's so nice. Yes, I hope I'm making good recommendations, not just ones that people will turn off, but good ones. We also have a book that was not originally on my radar, a book called Across an Ocean of Stars, which is by uh, Robert E. Hampson, who I met at Dragon Con, and I've interviewed him before. But it's from the Black Tide Rising series, which I just read one of the spinoffs, Mountain of Fire, which was an excellent book. And so that was an excellent read. And then that Across the Ocean of Stars it's about zombies in Hawaii, which I think is just going to be really fascinating. Jack says, have any plans for more YA series? Well, I'm finishing up right now the Fablehaven series. I just read book 4. That review should come out soon. And book 5 I will be reading this month. And then my plan for 2025, when it comes to YA or middle grade stuff on my shelves, I have some more of the what's that series called? The City of Ember series. I have books 2, 3, and 4 in that series, and then I also have The Arithmetist by Brandon Sanderson. So those are the YA middle grades on my shelves. I do plan to eventually get more YAs, but the beginning of 2025, I'm going to focus more on some other series I have. I might jump right back into YA because I did a lot of YA this year. I read a lot of YA books. I finished, if you include series I had been in the middle of, I finished like I think 4 or 5 series this year. So I want to focus on some other genres, but I will get into more YA. Specifically, the Hunger Games prequel is one of the YAs that I intend to read next year. Let's see what we have. Gunts says, have you ever read The Anomaly? One of my favorite books. Would love to see a review at some point. Who's The Anomaly by? But I can look it up, see if I can find it anywhere. But and also what's the genre? I assume that sounds like something you'd read in science fiction, that title, but I'm not entirely sure. We also have John H. Stevenson IV. Hello. I checked one of your last live streams. Don't ever let anyone cuss you by saying you look like Bill Gates. Yes, everybody always says I look like Bill Gates, even on like Twitter, here, everywhere. I get it all the time. It's so tiring. I'm just like, I need to own it at this point. And in fact, on my in my email inbox, I got a LinkedIn thing that said you should connect with Bill Gates on there, and I tweeted out I should connect with myself, just leaning into the joke. Let's see. The next comment I see is Mean Metal Mike Hello. It says, what's Crimson Empire? I'm not sure. I was talking about Reign of the Empire a minute ago, which is the new Star Wars book series. The first book releases next year. Crimson Empire, isn't that a comic series, I want to say? I'm not sure. Let's see. Jack says, have any big video ideas for when you reach 10,000 subs? Yes, I've slowed down in the last couple months, so I've not been, focusing entirely on that, but I can see that that's coming. I know it's coming. So eventually, certainly I will have some big videos planned for that. I'll go ahead and, say it here. I'll make a full video or a couple videos discussing it, but my plan is to start channel memberships in January. And that will have a few things such as like, I plan to do weekly videos that are just for members, channel members, that are kind of like, what Mike does, like his weekly updates type things, just showing what I'm reading that week. Because when I read what a lot of people I think don't know is that I will read a book and then I will upload the book about a month later in my video stream because I record way in advance. I do that so that if I ever get sick or get injured or have to move or whatever, I have a steady stream of videos planned. So for instance, I finished the week of release, I finished the Mace Windu book, but I got comments for days of just people saying, where's the Mace Windu review? Where's the Mace Windu review? And I'm like, I upload a month in advance. Now, I ended up moving that one up a lot just because I was like, you know what? Everyone's asking for it. I'll try to get that one up. And so I moved it up in the release schedule as much as I could. But generally, that's the rule. So the idea behind the weekly updates is that I'll be able to, if you're a channel member, you'll be able to see my reads as I'm reading them each week. So you'll get my thoughts then. But that'll be announced. I'll have more information on that soon. Jeremy, great to see you, man. Spectacular Website says, oh man, now I can't unsee it. I know everybody calls me Bill Gates. I know. Hervé Letellier is the author. It's science fiction book, but it's very realistic. Okay, I will write that down in my list to get The Anomaly by Herb. Is it Tellier? Okay. Uh, Mean Metal Mike says, "Do you think we will get another series of Timothy Zahn Thrawn books based off the Ahsoka series and Mando? What he did, what he said publicly at Dragon Con was that he has proposals for more books, specifically for Eli Vanto books, and that it is just kind of cut off from doing anything else at the moment. However, he has those proposals out there, and of course." He's also said he's willing to write, like in Star Wars again for whatever, because he loves Star Wars and his paycheck probably loves Star Wars a lot. So of course he has proposals. The question is what's allowed to happen. And Dave and John for the Mandalorian universe, the Ahsoka universe, they have not been allowing a lot of spinoffs. They had a few spinoff books planned, and then they just canned them when the whole Gina Carano stuff happened. And I think they've just thought that it's easier if they control everything. So as long as that story is happening, we're probably not going to get more books featuring the characters like Thrawn and Ahsoka and those. But then once those series are ended, however they're ended, I can absolutely see them bringing back the authors and filling in the gaps and stuff. Saved by Grace 1999 says, "Hey, I don't read him because I don't agree with his views on Christianity, but Ken Follett was born not far from me in Cardiff, Wales. Love your videos." Thank you. And I got a lot of flack for my discussion of Ken Follett's portrayal of Christianity in the Pillars of the Earth. And what people missed was Pillars of the Earth is still my favorite read of the year. And the other two books are like top 10 books of the year. Like that's how good his writing is. Yet I vehemently disagree with him on worldview and on religion. But I really I really enjoy the books as well. But that's cool that he was born near you. He just has a way of writing that's just so fascinating. Mean Metal Mike says Thrawn is my favorite villain. I would agree. Yes. Let's see. Movie Magic says, "You got me into the Eugenics Wars novels. So good. Great James Bond-esque story." Well, I'm glad. Greg Cox is a great author. I haven't gotten to the Eugenics Wars series yet, but he is just he writes books I enjoy. Every book I've read of his has been highly entertaining. Justin says, "How many hours a day, week do you usually read?" It varies. There are some days, for instance, this week was way off because of monitoring the election. I didn't get much reading in during the week, but on the weekend I've already read a ton. But on average, the way I work is I will read about between 1 to 2.5 hours per night on weeknights, and then on weekends I'll read 4, 5, 6 hours, something like that. So I read a lot more. And it just, it depends on what I've got going on. If I've got like a marching band competition that I'm helping out with, then I'll not read anything but that weekend. But if I have nothing going on and I'm super bored, I'll read a ton. So it just kind of depends. Let's see, where am I at? Jeremy says, "I'm curious, what's your most anticipated 2025 book release?" Well, I am making a video on that, and it's really close. I have my top 4 are so close together. Like on any given day, they could be anything else, but I'll tell you my top 4 because they're all right there. I have, of course, Batman Revolution, the next Batman novel by John Jackson Miller. I have Star Wars Trials of the Jedi by Charles Soule, who's one of my favorite Star Wars authors, Charles Soule. Then we have The Sorrow of the Sea, which is by Stephen Arion from the Judas Blossom series, the Falcon and the Nightingale series. Love that series. And then we also have The Blackfire Blade by James Logan, which is the sequel to The Silver Blood Promise, which was one of my favorite fantasy reads this year. So those are my top 4, and they could be my number 1. It just kind of depends. As of right now, I have Blackfire Blade at number 1, but Sorrow of the Sea could be number 1, depending on how I'm reading book 2 in the series, Blood Dim Tide. And if it's amazing, that might jump up the list. We'll see. Gunt says, "I love your Star Wars book reviews. Have you ever thought about reading through and reading the Dune series?" You're in luck, Gunts. I have read and reviewed a lot of the Dune books. Not all of them. I'm working through them slowly. I have read the first 4 by Frank Herbert, and then I've read 2 of the trilogies by Brian and Kevin, and I have another trilogy that I'm planning to read early next year, probably in like January, February, and that's the Butlerian Jihad I'll read next year. So yes, and you can just look up whatever the name of the book is, plus my name, So it'd be like Dune, Messiah, Jonathan Cohn, and you'll find the review, or Children of Dune, Jonathan Cohn, you'll find the review, or God Emperor, whatever. It's the Brian Lee Durfee method. Just put in my name and the book title, and it will magically appear on your screen. Metal Mike says, "Is Thrawn going to be the main villain for the Grogu film?" No, I don't think so. I think they're saving Thrawn for he might. I don't know if they're going to do a post-credit scene or if it's going to be at the end of the movie, but Thrawn, I think, is really Dave's story, not as much John's. So John's telling his own thing and might intersect with Dave Filoni's storylines, but I think Dave's going to save that for Ahsoka season 2 and for his movie that he's working on. Let's see. Jack Attorney says, "Would you ever do guides for beginners of reading fantasy or science fiction?" Certainly. They're huge genres. And so even though I'm, compared to some people more well read, I'm not even that well read compared to, other reviewers I know. So I don't always, I never feel qualified for that, but I might, get into it one day, certainly. And if people ask for it like you just did, absolutely. Let's see how it goes. Where am I at? Main Metal Mike says, "I'm reading the X-Wing series. Isar's Revenge is enjoyable." Yes, that is an interesting book. Isar's Revenge. I really enjoy the X-Wing series. I'm going to say the first 4 are like top tier Star Wars for me. That's one of my favorite series. I'd say the Aaron Alston stuff, I enjoy his writing. Just his X-Wing books aren't my favorite, but I like them. And then I really enjoyed Isar's Revenge. I really enjoyed Starfighters of Adjumar, and then I have not done the final book, Mercy Kill, but I own it. I just bought it. It's up. You can't see it on screen, but it's up there, and that'll be sometime in 2025 that I'll read it. Let's see where I'm at. Jonathan F., good afternoon. Good to see you. Glad you were able to join us. Spectacular says, "Jonathan, do you take book requests? My friend is an author and wants to send a free copy of one of his fantasy books for an honest review." So I am at a point where I get inundated with book review requests and for requests to send copies. And so I'm at the point where I just have to say, look, I cannot promise I'll get to books. And I'm also at the point where I'm saying I'm really just picking up books I'm interested in. So if you can find my email on the in the about section of the channel, and if you send me the email with the information, I might be able to respond and read it. I might also not be able to. It's not that I, don't like, what I see. It's just that, I have on my shelves, just on my shelves, well over like 250 books to read. And then there's also books I want to buy and want to read that are difficult. So, and this is the plight of all reviewers. I know that other book reviewers and book channels, things are in the same place. We like receiving books and like being able to connect with the authors like that, but we have to have the ability to cut off. So it's not anything personal on an author. If I don't pick up a book, it's just so the email is the best way, and then I'll look at it potentially. Where am I at? John says, "No wonder why plot isn't very important to you. You read a lot of stuff. I wouldn't." Well, actually, I don't read John. I never read fan fiction. That's my rule. I will never ever read fan fiction. So that is a hard cutoff rule, simply because I would get in trouble, and so I don't read fan fiction a lot. Um, let's see where I'm at. Gunt says, "How have I not seen it? Gonna watch them tonight. I've read the original 6 and want to know your opinion on Messiah and Heretics." I've not gone to Heretics yet. I plan to read, once I've read a lot of like the prequel stuff from Kevin and Brian. Once I read all that, I will eventually get to the last 2 books, Heretics and Chapter House, and then I'll read the 2 finales that Kevin and Brian wrote. That's my plan with the. Oops, sorry, didn't mean to hit the mic. That's my plan with the. That's my plan with it. All right. Where am I at? Mean Metal Mike says, "Isn't there books on the Halloween franchise?" There are novelizations. I know for a fact there are novelizations because my friend Matthew from the Geek Attic has read the novelizations, but I have not read any, and I don't know if there's extra novels in there. Jack says, "Any tie-in books you want to get into?" Actually, yes, I just purchased some. I do want to read more of the Drift books I haven't read. I have more Halo books that I haven't read yet. And I would like to get into Assassin's Creed, the books. I've never played the games, but the books seem kind of interesting. And some of the authors I follow, like Christy Golden, have participated with them. But I don't know if I would. I don't know, I have to work through what I have on my shelves and what I am interested in buying before I get to more tie-in fiction books. But I'm really glad that John Jackson Miller's Batman Resurrection worked so well, and I'm hoping that other books in that vein that revive older franchises and tell fresh stories like that, I hope that that continues because that book was just amazing. Uh, uh, where am I at? Spectacular Pest is completely understandable. Good. Gunt says, random, has anyone told you that you look a lot like Scott the Woz? I mean that in a good way. I don't know who that is, but oh no, is he the guy that reviews movies, I think physical media stuff? If that's who that I'm thinking of, then yes, I have been compared, but I'm always compared to Bill Gates, so I will take Scott the Woz. It's a different one. Hello, I think it's Chaos. Hello, Chaos. Pepe says, after phase 3 of the High Republic ends, is there a path you want Star Wars books to go towards? Another big collaboration between everyone? Authors back to standalone. Okay, I've discussed this a little, but I will do it again because I love talking about this. After High Republic ends, my opinion is that they should move significantly in the past, do an Old Republic story that has absolutely nothing, maybe do a trilogy, maybe do like a 9-book series, like, you know, how they did The Legacy of the Force, 3 authors, 9 books, or Fate of the Jedi, 3 authors, 9 books. I want them to do something like that, that is an Old Republic series, completely disconnected from everything. Maybe you keep 1 or 2 authors from the High Republic, maybe keep Charles Soule, maybe Kevin Scott, but I would say of the 2, keep Charles Soule because I think he would work better for this idea. But you get new authors as well, or even old EU authors, or maybe one of each. You get a current author, an old EU author, and a new author. That would work well. And you do an Old Republic story that has don't touch the Knights of the Old Republic, don't touch the Old Republic video game. Choose a point in the Old Republic timeline and tell your story there. Tell a new war that happened on this sector of the galaxy or whatever. That's what I think would be the best concept. I think that would be the best plan. That's that. But you know, I will read whatever they do. Ralph Finetti says, what do you mean you get in trouble reading fanfics? Well, the thing is that fanfictions are illegal, and it's like, you know, I work with publishers and stuff, and so I can read official stuff, but it would be looked, it would not be looked down, it would not be looked well to be reading the fanfic stuff. And you know, the rule that authors have is authors, you know, once you become professional, you're not allowed to read it fanfics either. And so I keep the same for reviewers, that, you know, I'm going to keep the professional side of that. Let's see where I am at. John says, I messed up. I meant to say Pulp Fiction. Pulp Fiction? Oh, trying to be nice. Okay. You mean media tie-in fiction. That's the term you're looking for, John. Media tie-in fiction. Fiction that ties into franchises like Star Wars or Star Trek or Halo or things like that. That is the term we use. Pulp fiction is more just fun books. Pulpy books are lighter, shorter, you know, that type of thing. The term you're looking for is media tie-in fiction. Jonathan F says, ever planning on finishing the Red Rising series? I have book 3. I just am not, I never feel interested. When I plan out my monthly TBRs, I'm like, I'm not feeling it right now. So I have it. I might get to it. I don't know. I feel like I should at this point, because it's been like what, 4 or 5 years. I should just reread the first 2 books to read the third one. Raffinate says, have you ever read a novelization from a superhero movie? I don't think so. The last novelization I read was the other day, which I'm about to make the video on, which was the Hook novelization, which was not that good. It was not that good. I've read novelizations for Star Wars, Star Trek, and I feel like there was one other thing that I read a novelization for. But anyway, I don't think I've done superhero, but I'd be into it. You know, especially if it adds stuff. My novelizations, I like them when they add stuff. If it's just a straight up retelling of the story, don't waste my time. That's how I feel. Rob says, love a Jonathan live stream. Can we get an updated studio tour before the end of the year? Okay, everyone asking for this. Here's the problem with doing an updated studio tour. I am at my capacity with books. And so, for instance, you can see at this angle, these books, I had to turn sideways to fit them in. And my Star Trek books are entirely turned like way different ways because I couldn't, you know, I couldn't fit any more books on there and I had to make room. I am out of space in my current studio. Crossing fingers, in the spring, I plan to move. And if I move, I should have more space for a studio. And if that is the case, then I will absolutely be able to do like an updated tour then. At the moment, it is unlikely to happen, but it's, I might. If I feel like light on content, I might do one. But to be honest, I'm not light on content. I have so many books to review, and I'm reading almost so much that if I hit a reading slump, I might do it. Uh, Jonathan says, after High Republic, I need Clone Wars, Clone Wars, Clone Wars. I'd love to see an ongoing series set in the Clone Wars that has absolutely nothing to do with the A-Team. I like them to take a Master and a Padawan who we've never seen before and basically do like a Day of the Jackal thing where you see them going through the events of the Clone Wars, where you're seeing them go to these battles and you're hearing, oh yeah, we just had this battle at Christosis. Oh yeah, we just had this battle here at whatever. And so you're hearing about these events from the Clone Wars TV show, but their storylines following a different path, and you follow on original new characters. That's what I'd love to see, and I think that would be great. I don't think they're going to do that because I think they're probably going to go either stay in the High Republic era with another series or go back to the Old Republic. That's what my guess is. Let's see where I am at. Ralph says, he's just talking to someone else. John says, off-topic question from books. Let me learn more about you. What are some of your favorite musicians, bands, albums? I like classical music, so I like Handel and Bach, and I like movie scores, John Williams. I like John Powell. I occasionally like Hans Zimmer. I don't like most of his stuff, but some of his stuff, like Dune, is amazing. I like Michael Giacchino, and I like listening to Ludwig Göransson, and I like listening to Lorne Balfe. So that's the music I listen to. Gunt says, don't know much if you're much of a gamer, but have you read or want to read the novelization of Death Standing? I didn't even know that was a game. Was planning on reading it, but not sure how to compare it to the Hideo Kojima game. I'm not a gamer. Like, I read the first Halo book, having never played Halo, but I enjoyed it. I'm not opposed to it, but it's all a question of if I'm interested and I'm able to get into the book or series. Jeremy says, I know you're a big fan of The West Wing. Are there any book series that are similar to the show in terms of dealing with the day-to-day events in a White House setting? Yes. I do not read straight up political fiction as much, simply because it's not part of the genres that I'm focused on as much, but I do love that type of thing. I do know that Joel C. Rosenberg writes a lot of stuff about the White House, but he usually adds stuff about terrorism and military stuff. So his is less about the day-to-day events of the White House and more about fighting terrorism type stuff. But he includes a lot of the White House stuff in there. You probably, Jeremy, knowing you in Star Trek, you probably are aware of this, but there is a Star Trek book called Articles of the Federation that is literally just the West Wing and Star Trek. It's like if they had a crossover between the two, that's basically what that book is. It's about the president of the Federation, and you see all her staff, and there are certain scenes in that book that I'm like, you literally pulled that scene from the West Wing and just changed stuff around. I love it. It's one of my favorites, and I would definitely recommend that one. Yeah, Jonathan, it's been a long time since I read the Red Rising books. All right. Raffinay says, illegal seems like such a strong word. I don't know if anybody makes a profit from the story, and it's very clear that it's unofficial. What's the harm? Well, you just pitched as fan based. Yes, but here's the difference: is I would never write what I pitched. I would suggest to the publishers, this is what you should do, but I would never ever write it down and try to put it online. That's not what we do. Chaos says, where are you moving? I'm staying in the exact same area I'm in. I just found a place that looks like it'll be significantly cheaper than where I'm living because everything's getting crazy expensive here. So I'm staying here in Georgia in the same job, same location, just a couple of minutes down the road where it's cheaper. Rafne says, are you planning on beginning the next FACPOV book before 2025? Before 2025? No. Sometime in 2025, maybe. Also says, are fan arts also illegal by that definition? That's also in a tricky... I know some people love fan art, but I'm just it's not official from the studio or from the publisher or from the IP owner. So I just don't even go near it. That's too sticky. John says Beethoven's Fifth Symphony is the best. Maybe you'd like Charles Mingus for jazz. I do enjoy listening to jazz sometimes. I do enjoy jazz. Jonathan F says, "Have you ever read anything by Tom Clancy?" Yes. In fact, his the Hunt for Red October is one of my top novels of all time. I love that book, and I love the movie too. It's a great movie. However, I read The Cardinal and the Kremlin, and it was fine. I didn't love it, and I have the next book in the series, Clear and Present Danger. His just stuff is just like, man, I think about it, but I'm like, I'm not sure if it would perform well, and I'm also just not sure I'm that interested in the book, and they're so long, so I'm just kind of I'm just in a weird space about that. Where am I at? Mears Nook says, "Do you read a certain genre or reread certain books during the holidays?" I'm not the biggest rereader. Occasionally, I will reread stuff. Trying to think what I've reread. I've reread Kenobi a couple times during Christmas time. I've also reread. I think one time, like back in like 2020, I reread the Harry Potter books. I don't know. Like I have so many books on my to be read list that rereading is really difficult for me because I'm like, I can't get to everything. And if I reread, that's one less book. That's a new book that I could potentially get to. Where am I at? Gunt says, "What book would you say the movie did it better?" Mine is Jaws. Also, what do you consider far superior to the movie? I would say Jurassic Park for that. The movie did the better. Absolutely. Answer is Princess Bride. Absolutely is The Princess Bride. Did not care for the book at all. Loved the Princess Bride movie. Of course, in the movie space, there's so many others that there's so many movies that aren't as well done as the books. My hot take that I know some people may not love is that the Lord of the Rings movies are so much more enjoyable than the books. I respect the books. I love the books. I understand. I love them. But the Lord of the Rings movies are like, just so fun for me. I have like a fun element to it, whereas Lord of the books I have respect for. The movies I love watching. Things like that. Let's see where I'm at. Oh dear, we're hi, Samwise. Great to see you here. Rob Schwartz says, "What will you read first, Red Rising or Sun Eaters?" I feel like Sun Eaters would be up your alley, Jonathan. Yes, I do plan to read Sun Eater next year. I do have books 1, 2, and 6 on the in my library. I still need to buy books 3, 4, and 5, but they'll come. So I have Sun Eater 2 plan to read. So I do plan to do that soon. And everybody recommends it. Everyone says I'll enjoy it. And I love Christopher Rocchio. He's a great author. I know who his editors are, and they're very nice people as well. So I'm very interested in getting into that. Jack says, "Would you ever be a guest on Mike's talk about nothing live streams?" I'd love it. He has to invite me, but it's his live stream. So if he wants to have me, I'd love it. If he doesn't, it's totally fine. But because I love Mike. He's a great reviewer. In fact, I try to emulate a lot of things that he does on the channel. Him and Brian Lee Durfee are really the ones I really respect in the business. Samwise says, "Very Star Wars and Dune inspired with lots of weird twists to it." That's what I've heard about the Sun Eater series. Jonathan says, "I just bought The Hunt for Red October. Harrison Ford is by Jack Ryan." That's funny. I don't know. I guess when I read Hunt for Red October, I pictured Alec Baldwin because that's who played it in the movie. But I don't know who, because I didn't particularly like the Harrison Ford movies for his Jack Ryan stuff. I liked Some of All Fears. I just wish it was better, the movie. And I thought he was fine in it. I haven't seen the Chris Pine one. And I watched the first season of the Jack Ryan TV show with John Krasinski, who I respect. I respect John Krasinski, but it's just not. He's not. That show is not my cup of tea. So, Raffinay says, "I feel like fanfic illegal is like jaywalking when there's no car around legal." Well, I'm a very strict, stickler for that type of stuff, and also I'm in the business. When you're just a fan and you are, just reading stuff on your own, it's different than when you know the authors, when you know the publisher and the editors, and you know the IP owners, and getting into that stuff, that gets more difficult. Samwise says, "Young Alec Baldwin all the way for me." I'm glad someone else is with me on that. Let's see where I'm at. Stevens John H. Stevenson IV says he really needs to go on other people's lives. I did go on For Whom the Bell Tolls. I was on his live stream already, so that was great. I love talking with Brian. Brian's so entertaining. He's so funny. He's such a great content creator, and he's great for recommending books. I love him. Let's see. Luxon18 says, have you ever read any books by Trudy Canavan? I've never heard of Trudy Canavan before. What books did Trudy Canavan write? You let me know. I'll try to put them on my list to look up at some point. Jonathan F says every kid needs to watch The Princess Bride at some point. I agree. It is a hilarious. It's a great gateway for fantasy because it's so humorous and you're focused on the humor, but you're also getting a lot of fantasy tropes and also making fun of fantasy tropes at the same time. I mean, it's just so it's classic. It's so good. Lisa says, currently reading Picard Rogue Elements. I'm about halfway, finding it slow. Tell me it gets better. Interesting. I really like the twists near the end, and I enjoyed throughout the kind of the mystery that's in it, a little bit about the ship and about the people that I forgot the name of them, but the people in it. If you're not enjoying it, I'm sorry. I provided a poor recommendation, Lisa. I really thought that it also has some references to the Prey trilogy that I loved, and I just thought it had a surprising amount of heart at the end. You don't see the heart of the book in the beginning of the book. You see it at the end of the book, so maybe that's when it'll click for you. But I really loved it. I really enjoyed it. Guntz says, I agree. The movies hit so differently. Saw them all in IMAX recently and cried like I always. Yes, when they did the re-release of The Lord of the Rings back in when they did the re-release for The Lord of the Rings last year, I went to see The Two Towers. I didn't make it to Fellowship because I had stuff going on and I just couldn't make it in time. But I watched The Two Towers when it came out on IMAX. I think it was IMAX. Yeah, it was the IMAX, and I watched it by myself. And it was really hard. I got up only one time to use the bathroom, but I made it through the movie. Then I watched Return of the King with my best friend, and let me tell you, we both were like crying. it's so hard to not watch Return of the King and not cry. It's impossible challenge. John Steam says everyone should watch Princess Bride. Cooper says, hi, Jonathan. I'm in the middle of the New Jedi Order books, and I'm wondering if I should continue with Legacy of the Force. If you're invested and you like the characters of Jason and Jaina and Ben, and you're really connected with the main cast as well, then absolutely you should continue on. In my opinion, the top tier is the New Jedi Order when it comes to like the long form series, not just trilogies, but long form. New Jedi Order is the top tier, and right below it is Fate of the Jedi. But you can't get to Fate of the Jedi without Legacy of the Force. Legacy of the Force is like a gateway. It's the middle book. It's the transition series, really, and a lot of big stuff happens in it. And it's the one that is like very classic feeling Star Wars. Fate of the Jedi is not classic feeling Star Wars at all. And New Jedi Order is very experimental. Legacy of the Force is like getting back to basics. So a lot of other people might enjoy it more. For me, I enjoyed it, but it's just comparatively not as great. But I think most people will enjoy it, so I think you should read it. But just note, if you're not enjoying it that much, it's worth it to get a Fate of the Jedi, because Fate of the Jedi is so good. That's what I would recommend. Jonathan F says, I'm a serial jaywalker. And Raffanetti says, you're definitely lawful good, so we love you, don't worry. That is true. That is very true. When I do D&D, I am not usually lawful good, but in my real life, I am all the way to the side of lawful good. Jonathan says, anyone excited for the Revenge of the Sith anniversary this year? Hopefully a re-release too. I would not be surprised if it gets a re-release, especially with how good Phantom Menace did this year and with how good the Return of the Jedi did last year. So I wouldn't be surprised, especially since they have Celebration coming next year. But it might be worth it seeing in theaters. I never got to see it in theaters. I was just too young. The first Star Wars movie I saw in theaters, if you include animation, was the Clone Wars, which was 3 years later. Spider-Man says, how long does it take you to read a book? I'm very slow, so I usually use Audible to read the Star Wars books. When I read it, it usually takes me around 1 to 6 months for one book. Woo! 1 to 6 months. That's a lot. It depends. If I love a book, I will breeze through it in a day or two. The Thrawn book, Thrawn Treason, I read in literally one day. Some other books that were shorter than that took me 2, 3, 4 days because it took longer. rarely does a book take me more than a week. If a book's taking me more than a week, it better be a chunker. Because if it's taking me more than 2 or 3 days and it's a short book, it's not worth it. Now, for instance, I just read Men of Britain, which is 240 pages, really short. I read it in like I read the first third last night, and then I read the rest of it this morning. So it was like a quick read. But other books that are this length that aren't as fun might not read that fast. So that's about how long it takes me to read Spider-Man. AJ Singh, great to see you, says, reading The Stand by Stephen King. It's getting good. Starting to read The Predator Stalking Shadows. I don't, that's a Predator, I assume, tying into the Predator movies? If so, interesting. I know that there's a lot of tie-in books for Predator and Alien. I haven't read them, but I'm very interested in them one day. That's a media tie-in series I would like to get into. Gunt says, I can't carry it for you, but I can carry you. Always has me sobbing and cheering for Sam every time. Yes, the 5 endings, my friends, you bow to no one, and Gandalf's the spiel about not crying, or about crying being okay, I should say, and then Frodo's letter to Sam. And then the music with the flute, the do 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 do. Oh, I love that. So yes, it gets me every time. Jack Eternity says, most overrated book or book series in your opinion? The Darth Bane books for Star Wars. For Star Trek, I don't know. For fantasy, I'd say the Malazan books, but I've only read the first 2, so I can't really judge it in that case. I don't have an answer for fantasy. For sci-fi, I haven't read too much sci-fi, but don't have the answer. But yeah, Darth Bane for Star Wars would be my answer. Jonathan says the Clone Wars movie was the first piece of Star Wars media I ever consumed as a kid. Absolutely life-changing. Oh, that's great. It's not the first I saw. I'd seen the original 6 movies, but that was the first movie in theaters that I saw. And of course, that helped me become a big Clone Wars fan. And I didn't know when I went to see it that there was also going to be a TV show. I didn't know. I just thought we were just getting the movie. And then that fall, one of my friends at school said, you know that there's a TV show, right? And I was like, what? There's a TV show? Oh, it was so cool. It was such a great moment. Saved by Grace 1999 says, have you read any Jack Reacher books? No, but that is like a series I do want to get to because I think my dad and I would enjoy it. And I like having a series or books that my dad and I can both read. Right now it's John Grisham, but I'm soon going to get through the John Grisham books. He's also reading something else right now that I also read. So that might be the next one that we have to do because we would both enjoy that. Lisa says, I'm going to stick with it for sure. I appreciate your recommendations. Getting ready to start Venge War, Wake of the Dragon. First book was great. I know nobody talks about the Wake of the Dragon series because, it just didn't sell well. And also it's just so Game of Thrones like and standard fantasy. But Kevin Anderson just writes great books. I don't like the sexual elements in the book, but really his writing is just terrific in that series. And I think that book 2 is good. I think book 3 is also very, very good. So it's very good. And if you like the first one, you will like the second and third because they're so similar and so enjoyable in that sense. Rob Schwartz says, what's your weekday and weekend reading schedule? Usually on weekdays, 1 to 2 hours, maybe 2.5 if I get lucky. Weekends, 4 hours to 6 hours, maybe less, maybe more per day. We'll see. But that's usually 1 to 2 hours per day on weekdays, and then 4 to 6 hours on weekends. John Stevens says, hi, Jonathan. Love your channel. Thank you. Despite having a completely different reading taste from you, are you ever going to read more fantasy like Sanderson? Certainly. I have plenty of fantasy on the shelves to be read. In fact, I am reading another Sanderson next month with Wyndham Truth. I have the Rhapsody series, which is very Sanderson and Lord of the Rings, Wheel of Time inspired. I plan to read more of that soon. I also have Patrick Rothfuss to read, Tad Williams, Michael Stackpole, Terry Goodkind, Ellie Modisett Jr. So I have a lot of fantasy on the shelves to be read. I just haven't gotten to them yet. Roblox Gamer says, have you heard about 2 Star Wars books coming out next year, Wayseeker and The Crystal Crown? Yes, I have. I plan to read them. I always said this TV show for The Acolyte was way too expensive, and it would be better to do it in books because you don't have as many eyeballs on it, so it's not going to be as much anger from people. And the people who are going to enjoy the Acolyte storyline is probably going to be the people who read the books because they tend to be much more forgiving and they tend to like the types of things that The Acolyte was going for. So I think it's going to work very well. It's not going to be a bestseller, I don't think. I mean, it could. I'll be surprised, but I don't think it's going to be a bestseller. But it'll do well enough that it's worth it, and they'll probably continue the Acolyte story eventually win the books if this is successful enough. If it's a bestseller, absolutely they will continue the Acolyte in the books. But if it's just nominally okay, we'll have to see what happens with it. Jonathan F. Sorry. Says, I'm starting to find that I enjoy canon a bit more than Legends. Legends authors kind of all over the place, whereas the canon books seem to go to a strict set of guidelines. Yeah, but I enjoy that the canon tends to be more standalone if you take out the High Republic. It's very much, you could pick up any book based off your tastes, and they all have certain quality that they, guidelines, yes. But in the EU, they were able to tell overarching stories, and they were able to plan things out and really think things through and plot things through and stuff. So yeah, I think that the EU has its advantages, but I understand why some people enjoyed the canon more. I certainly love the canon myself. There's just certain ones I don't love. Sean says, hello, Jonathan. Any plans to read the Bloodsworn saga? I'm loving it and have purchased all the Faithful and the Fallen. I did love the Faithful and the Fallen. I do have the first Bloodsworn book that I do plan to read sometime next year if I can get to it. And if I enjoy it, I will certainly buy books 2 and 3 because John Gwynne is a great author, at least based off the Faithful and the Fallen series. Raffinetti says, has there been Star Wars books that you took a long break in the middle of reading it because of how bad, boring it was to you? When you say a long break, in the middle of a single book or in the middle of a series? In the middle of a series, absolutely. There were books I took breaks in between. The New Jedi Order, I would take like a couple months in between books at times. The individual books, not really. I don't take a break. If I'm reading a book, that is the book I'm reading. Unless something, occasionally, like for work, something will come up, or I have to interview an author. So therefore, I need to stop what I'm doing and read the book for the author. Except for those examples, which are rare, few and far between, I always start a book, read it to completion. So if I'm not enjoying it, I need to power through it because I'm finishing it, and I don't DNF books. I DNF maybe one book a year out of 120 or 30. So I don't DNF often. Let's see where I'm at. AJ talking about earlier. Yes, it's a Predator book. Okay, you'll have to tell me how it is because I have not. I have not read any of them yet. Luxon says, I hadn't heard of Trudy Canavan until a friend gifted me her book, Age of the Five series. She's an Australian fantasy author. From watching your reviews, I think you may enjoy your stuff. Well, let me write that down. Trudy Canavan. And it's Age of the Five. Okay, I'll have that down. Oracle comes Spider. Great to see you, Spider. Great to see you. Says I'm about to start Star Trek Death in Winter. Haven't read it. I do have it somewhere on the shelves over there. Do intend to get to it eventually, but I've not heard much about it. But I have it. Nerdishly Active says, would you recommend reading the original Star Wars trilogy to get into the universe or watch the movies instead? Oh, watch the movies. Yes. I mean, novelizations sometimes are entertaining, but just watch the movies. Yeah, absolutely. To get into Star Wars, watch the movies. If you want the books, go to the original books, not the novelizations, because you're just rehashing stuff. But watch the movies and read the original novels. That's what I would recommend. AJ Singh, and I have recommendations on where to start with the book series. So if you're like, you want to start in the Legends universe, the older stuff, or you want to read the newer stuff, the canon, I have videos on both. But that's after you've at least watched the original 6 or the original 9, or all the movies at least. Let's see where I'm at. AJ Singh says, The Stand is about 1,206 pages. Any advice to read it fast as it's a large book? I just say set goals. Say, all right, I'm going to read 100 books a day, or 100 pages a day. 100 books a day, 100 pages a day, and then that gets you done in 12 days. Or if you're a faster reader, I'm going to read 150 pages a day, get it done in like 7 days or 8 days. So it's all about goals, I think. That's my recommendation. And then also, get up after reading maybe 50 pages, walk around, stretch, do something else for half an hour, then come back and read again because you might get burned out if you just try to read it all in one sitting. Jack Eternity says, what books do you think will be revealed during Celebration next year for Star Wars? I doubt that they're going to announce another major series because the High Republic is ending right after Celebration. Celebration, I think, is in April. The end of the High Republic is May and June. So they're not going to be like, right before the final books come out, hey, we have this brand new series. Focus on that instead. So instead, they're going to put all the attention on the High Republic. And then they might announce some standalones, like, how they did The Living Force this year and the Mace Windu Glass Abyss, and they did The Inquisitor Rise of the Red Blade last year, or Brotherhood the year before. Like standalone books that are set at various points in the timeline. That's what will probably get announced at Celebration. I mean, of course, if we get something else announced, I would love it, but that's unlikely to happen. I'd love it, though. Luxon18 says, aside from the Ken Follett's you've read, have you got any historical fiction recommendations? I've not read much historical fiction. That's the problem, is even though I'm a history teacher, I should love it. I've just not gotten into it much. Technically, it's technically fantasy because it's there's some magic in it. But The Judas Blossom by Stephen Arion is historical fiction that identifies as fantasy. It says it's fantasy on the list, but it's really historical fiction. That book is amazing. I would recommend that. It's about the Mongolian Empire. It's really good. Oh, that book is so good. Roblox Gamer says, in the High Republic Phase 2, can I read Cataclysm directly after Convergence without reading the Battle of Jeddah? Okay, so my friend Caleb from Caleb Likes Books, who you should all check out his channel, he says yes, because he did that. He skipped from Convergence to Cataclysm. However, there are characters and plot lines and details from the Battle of Jeddah and nuances of the plot that you will miss. I view it as a trilogy. Acts 1 and 3 are the novels, and then Act 2 is the script, the audio drama story that you can read as either a script format in the book or listen in audio. To me, you need all three. You watch Act 1 and 3 of a movie. Yeah, you got the big stuff happening in those acts, but you miss a big chunk of Act 2. That's at least my opinion. Gunt says, what was the first book that when you were reading you knew you wanted to follow a career in reviewing? I don't know if I directly thought about having a career at the time. Certainly when I was reading the Wheel of Time books, I was like, I want to review these, and I want to some of the first reviews I wrote were for the Wheel of Time books. And then I also felt like I might want to be a reviewer when I read Elantris, which is my favorite novel of all time. So those ones, certainly, I don't know if there was one that I was like, I will become a reviewer so that I can discuss this book. There wasn't like a single book. It was a series over time. It was like over a couple of years. I started reading in December of 2015 for fun. That's when I really got into it on my own. And then I went until December of 2018. And then in January of 2019, I started a competition with someone, and we did that competition 2019, 2020. And 2021 was when I started the channel. I'm going to take a drink of something real quick because I've been talking straight for a while. So, okay, where am I at? Oh, the thing jumped. Chaos says, I'll join back later if you're still streaming. See ya. Thanks for coming, Chaos. Jack Attorney says, plan on reading the Last Kingdom books at some point. Yes, because I've heard I will enjoy them, and they're historical fiction in the way that I really like. So I do plan to get to them eventually. Roblox, we talked about this earlier. I think they'll plan to do either an Old Republic series or another High Republic Acolyte-related series next. I don't think we're going to get anything set during the sequel trilogy era, because they're still working on that stuff, and I don't think we're getting anything in the prequels unless it's a standalone book. We do have the Reign of the Empire trilogy, but that's just a single trilogy. It's not a huge series, so that's my anticipated result. Jonathan says, I know you plan on reading manga next year. Have you ever heard of Vinland Saga? I've heard of it. I've never read it though, but I'm not opposed to getting into it at some point. Jack Attorney says, did your love of reading and books influence becoming a teacher? Yes, I think that my love of battles and politics is what made me want to become a teacher, because I wanted to share that love. But my love of reading, which developed later, enhanced it. And I love it when my students get into books. I love it when I can get into discussions with my students about the books I'm reading. I have a few students who read Star Wars and Star Trek books. It's so great to talk with them about it. I have one student that is reading the she's reading the Twilight books. She's a high school student, and she was carrying a book, and I couldn't see what it was, and I said, "Oh, what book are you reading?" She said, "Oh, it's not something you'd enjoy." And I said, "Oh, try me, try me." And she said, "It's the Twilight books." And I said, "I just read those this year." And she was like, "What? My history teacher reads Twilight?" And we had a great discussion about tropes and themes and books and stuff, and also which team, Edward or Jacob. So I love getting to do that. Rebel Soldier Dom says, "What book or series would you recommend for the Star Wars canon books?" If you're talking about just starting, I guess I would recommend starting with like either for an individual book, maybe A New Dawn, maybe Master and Apprentice, maybe Dark Disciple if you like the Clone Wars era. If you like, the original trilogy, maybe Thrawn, that book. Also if you like Rebels, that book also works well. Those are the ones I would recommend for starting points. But I do have a whole video where to start reading the canon novels. That's into much more detail. Jamie says, "I just finished the campaign for Star Wars Battlefront 2. Have you read the prequel, Inferno Squad?" Yes, I have. I really enjoyed it. It is a great book. I think it is a really solid book, and it ties into the Clone Wars, which is really cool. It ties into Rogue One. It ties into the Battlefront 2 game. It is a great book by Christy Golden. And if you're an audio person, which I'm not, but if you are, the audiobook is narrated by Janina Kavankar, who's the actress from the video game. So that's pretty cool. Justin says, "Are you excited for the new Star Wars movie trilogy?" I am excited for whatever Star Wars actually comes out. At this point, I don't believe anything until goes into production. So I believe that the Filoni Favreau movie is coming out because I've seen production stills and I know they're in production on it. So that movie I'm excited for because I know it's happening. Anything else? Nope. I will wait until they actually film something because we've been burned too many times. Roblox says, "What future Star Wars books do you want?" I would love to see some Bad Batch related books. I think that would be really cool to see them. Maybe some books about them during the Clone Wars time. I'd also like to see. What I want is a trilogy that is like pick a war in the Old Republic, and you're following the Jedi versus Sith, and it's not just Darth Bane that just focuses on the dark side, or it's not like a book that's just like a single standalone that just takes place sometime during. I'm talking like an epic, truly, literally definition of the word epic trilogy that is like seeing this huge war, like Game of Thrones in scope, not in like violence or sex or language, but in terms of scope and politics and stuff. That's what I want to see for an Old Republic trilogy. Spider says, "Was there any books that you just put down after the first chapter and never picked back up?" Yes, I do plan to read it again, though. I read the first chapter of Atlas Shrugged and was like, I was in college at the time, and I was like, I have too much reading at the moment. I don't need to read Atlas Shrugged right now, but I do plan to get back to it. Juan says, "Love your show. What grade do you teach history for?" For 2 years, I taught 5th and 6th grade, but this year I teach 9th grade honors world history. Jonathan says, "Hot take, Bad Batch is the best Disney-made Star Wars show unless Clone Wars Season 7 counts." Are you saying animated? If you're saying animated, then yes, I agree. If you're saying live action, I don't think I agree. I think there's some live action that I like better. John Stevens says, "Do you ever plan on expanding on your religious beliefs?" I ask because I like how you just loved Ken Follett, even though you disagreed vehemently with how he wrote Christianity in his books. I discuss it briefly when it comes out. It's just like when it comes to my religious worldview, like when I'm reading a book and it severely doesn't align with my religious worldview, I will touch on it. But my goal with the channel is just to discuss my feelings on books. It is not to do too much, delve too much into those things. Same with politics. Sometimes I disagree with books politically, but so I have to mention it in the review that I disagree with the worldview of the politics of something. But at the same time, I'm not trying to convince anyone of anything. So that's just how I view it. Breezy Ann reads, "Hello." Says, I've recently collected a few Timothy Zahn books because of your recommendation. Would you suggest starting with any particular book since I'm new to the author? If you're talking about his original science fiction, if you want a good standalone, read Angel Mass. You'll get a good feeling for his writing style. If you want some good military sci-fi from him, the original Cobra series. If you want some like mind-bending, twisting, mystery sci-fi puzzle box is what we call it, then the Icarus saga as well, starting with either the prequel Icarus Hunt or Icarus Plot. Either one of those you can make start with. And then if you just want maybe a trilogy, his one of his best trilogies is the Conqueror's trilogy. That's also a good starting point. I don't know if I'd recommend Manta's Gift because it's totally different than anything else he's written, but that's his best book. But it's totally different from anything else he's written. So those are my starting points I would recommend, depending on what you're interested in. Jonathan says Dark Disciple was the first Star Wars adult novel I ever read. Oh, it's a good starting one, especially if you're a fan of the TV show, Clone Wars TV show. Let's see where I'm at. Oh dear, so many comments. I'll try to get them all. If you're reading manga soon, then make sure you read Attack on Titan. I know you're a history teacher, then you should enjoy it. It explains a lot of historic situations such as the Middle East and World War II. I've heard of Attack on Titan. I might try to get to it. Roblox says, what is your favorite book so far from High Republic Phase 3? Easy. Eye of Darkness. Easy answer. That is an amazing book. Almost on the level of the best Phase 1 books. Henrik Erickson says, what do you think about the original Obi-Wan movie script? I mean, I haven't read it, so I don't know anything about that. They didn't release it officially, so I don't know. David says, hey there, have you read the Expanse series? I've read the first book and I have books 2 and 3. I do eventually want to get to it one day. I'm just not sure if I ever will. Nerdishly Active says, have you read any books by Marie Lu? I have not yet, but I've heard about Marie's writing, and I've seen I think it's the Shatter Me series, and a lot of book talk people recommend it. So maybe that'll be one I'll get to eventually. AJ says, have you read Jurassic Park, The Lost World, or any Michael Crichton books? I've only read the first Jurassic Park book by him, and I enjoyed it. Jonathan says, Crosshair is one of the best clones ever written. I agree. Rebel Soldier Dom says, did you like Andor? I loved Andor. That's one of my favorite shows. Jack Eternity says, would love some Rebels books. Come on, Lucasfilm. I agree. It'd be great to get them. Actually, we do have some. We do have one for about every season. We have A New Dawn ties into the first season. We have Ahsoka ties into the second season. We have Thrawn and Thrawn Alliances, which tie into seasons 3 and 4, and then Treason, which ties into 3 and 4. So we do have plenty of Rebels-related books. It's just we don't have Rebels crew books as much of the adults. There are like kids' books for them, but haven't gotten into them. Gamer says, I really want a book about the Rebels crew just before season 1. Well, you have a book about Kanan and Hera and how they got started in A New Dawn. That's literally what this book is how did Kanan meet Hera and start their little rebellion. And it has one of the best books or best villains with Count Vidian. And of course, it's this first canon book. So it's literally a good starting point for the canon books, that is. Jamie says, I love Audible, so I'll check that out. Oh, thank you, Jamie. Rebel says, do you play RPG tabletop Star Wars games? For example, Edge of the Empire and Age of Rebellion? I'm not opposed to it. The only gaming I do that's like kind of tabletop-ish, it's not even exactly tabletop. I do D&D with some friends, and that's about it. I really don't play games. It's just not a thing I do. I just read. I'm going to skip a little bit. Bad Batch is the greatest out of the live action and animated for me. Ooh, that's very controversial. I think it was very well planned from the start, and animation is flawless. I do agree with that, at least. Let's see where I'm at. Lisa says, want to read Howard Andrew Jones. Where to start? The only thing I've read of his is the Hanovar books, which are one of my favorite series. Start with Lord of a Shattered Land. And then it's City of Marble and Blood and Shadow of the Smoking Mountain. And those are all from Baen, and they are excellent reads. Highly recommend them. Gnar Hesh says, have you read Brave New World? Oh, or Andrew Android's Dream of Electric Sheep. Those are like kind of classic sci-fi books that I really want to get to. I'm just like, when am I going to have the time? But I really want to get to them. AK says, I understand the Star Wars universe by only reading the books without watching the movies show. Can I understand it without watching the movies shows? I watch most of them, obviously. Just curious how to approach it, but never read any of the books. If you've never watched any of the movies, you'll probably pick up on stuff from the books. But like it's the way it's meant to be experienced. You watch the movies and then read the books after. But if all you've seen is the original movies and stuff, and then you dive into the books, you will understand. If you've never watched like the TV shows, most of the EU, there were no TV shows. It was just the movies and the books. That's it. So you'll absolutely understand everything. Occasionally they tie into comics and stuff, but not often. So really, you'll understand everything, I think. Newber says, "Hi, Jonathan. I know this isn't a book related, but why the halt on Two Sons of Tatooine? I was very looking forward to your insights on a certain Star Wars project. That is partially why we stopped recording Two Sons of Tatooine, was because of that certain Star Wars project. Just things were happening behind the scenes, and we were like, you know what? Let's just not. It's just not going to be worth it." So you can extrapolate why we did not talk about that series. Let's just say I thought the first 2 episodes of The Acolyte were entertaining, but I did not like 3 through 8 at all. I don't like any of those episodes. Jack Eternity says, favorite female author. It's between Elizabeth Hayden for fantasy, Christy Golden for Star Wars and Star Trek. I don't think I'd put Una McCormick in there. I don't think I'd put Mary Robinette Kowal in there. So yeah, for right now, it would either be maybe Kirsten Beyer for Star Trek. So be either between Kirsten Beyer, Christy Golden, and Elizabeth Hayden. I would give the edge to Elizabeth Hayden because the Rhapsody books are some of my favorite fantasy books. So that's what I would say. Oracle Come Spider says, have you read or heard of the Mushashi series? I have not, but I can put it on my list. Mushashi. Okay, I'll look it up. Roblox Gamer says, I finished Darth Plagueis today, and I'm going to start Rise the Red Blade tomorrow. Rise the Red Blade's so good. You're doing 2 Dark Side books back to back. Technically, the beginning of Rise the Red Blade isn't a Dark Side book, but it's a heavy read. Definitely recommend it. It's a great book. I think that Delilah Dawson is a terrific Star Wars author. She would also, you know what? Someone else asked a second ago about favorite female author. Delilah Dawson would have to be on the list, as would J.K. Rowling. So yeah, they'd have to be on the list as well. That's hard. It's hard to remember all of them. Where am I at? Zach says, I'm a big A Song of Ice and Fire fan. I want to get into Sanderson. Is there a good book to try out for a first Game of Thrones fan? I don't know if which Sanderson book is the best for a Song of Ice and Fire fan. I guess The Wheel of Time, which wasn't started by Sanderson, but he finished after Robert Jordan died, would probably be the best bet. The second best bet would be the Stormlight Archive, because those are huge books, big cast of characters, political situations, maybe Mistborn as well. But like Sanderson's style is so diametrically opposed. Sanderson is a plotter. Martin is a pantser. Sanderson is a very appropriate author. He's very Mormon, very religious in the way he writes. Martin is very worldly in the way he writes. Sanderson, he talks about politics, but from like the what good could happen. There's still bad stuff that happens, but it's what good could happen. Then you have Martin, who's very, what bad could happen with it. So it's a very interesting choice to jump in. But I guess I'd say the first Stormlight Archive book, Way of Kings. Justin says, have you read anything by Robin Hobb? I read the first years ago. It was I think it was my first review on the channel, or one of my first reviews was the first Robin Hobb book, The Assassin's Apprentice. I have more books of hers. I just haven't read them yet. Just haven't tried. Jack Train says, since you are trying to get into manga, can we expect you to continue My Hero at some point? I plan to reread the first 3 volumes that I read, and then I have volume 4 on my shelves. And then after that, we'll see how I feel about it. Maybe. Those are expensive. Manga and comics are so expensive. If they were cheaper, I would do it more. If I could buy 3 volumes for like $7 or $8, I would do it. But since 3 volumes typically cost like $15 or $20, it's just hard. It's just hard. Whereas a novel, is way more reading, and I can get for a lot cheaper. Especially if it's mass market. If it's hardcover, it's a special deal if I buy it, or they get sent to me. Where am I at? Hymns are beautiful. Oh, it's so great to see you, man. Says, is there a Mrs. Cone in your life yet? Not yet. I would love if it were so, but not yet. Yeah. Knuber says, I got the ELC hardcovers of Plagueis and Death Troopers on Inkstone. Really excited to have those books. Oh, the Essential Legends collection. That's what that means. Oh, good. I'm glad. I have Plagueis in both. I have both in mass market, and I enjoy those. I enjoy both reading of those. Roblox says, "Do you have any expanded universe books in the Essential Legends collection?" Nope. Not because I'm opposed to the Essential Legends collection, but I started collecting before then, and I just I have most of them in mass market, a few hardcovers, and I buy them used. So the thing is, I didn't start collecting the EU until after it was done. So I started with like the used stuff, and with the canon, I buy them in hardcover because I'm buying them as they're coming out. So I buy them in hardcover. So that's why the hardcover is all the canon's all hardcover. The EU is mostly mass market and hardcover if it's used. If it's new, like the Essential Legends books are new, so I'm not going to spend new money on it. But you know. Jonathan says, I just got an Andor season 2 release date as of 1 hour ago. Yeah, we were talking about that earlier. It's coming on April 22nd. Oracle Come Spider says, this is towards the one who asked about video games. Spider Mountain by P.T. Duderman is close to Far Cry 5. Roblox says, have you read every canon adult Star Wars book? I have, and I have a video coming in a few weeks that ranks them all. Again, I've done ranking videos in the past, but of course they keep releasing new books, so I have a ranking video coming up again. Jack says, plan on reading the Planet of the Apes books and novelizations. Not in the immediate future, but I know John Jackson Miller, one of my favorite authors, wrote a short story for one of the collections. So maybe. I'm going to finish up a few and then I'll have to head out. This has been a great discussion. Gunt says, I know it's not a physical copy, but there is an app called Shoujan app and Viz where they are like £2 a month and they give you everything you want to read. That's the thing is I don't read anything by ebook. The only thing I read by ebook is if a friend of mine is writing a novel and he needs me to read it to give him advice or to like blurb or something, and the only way I can read it is ebook, then I will make the time for it. But other than that, everything I do is physical because I have so many physical copies to read. Gunt says, and if you do, I also recommend Hunter x Hunter. That's a good series, I've heard. Thank you for being here, Lisa. I always appreciate your reviews and your discussion and you commenting on the channel. All of you guys, I appreciate it. I have not read True Grit, but I have watched the movies and I enjoyed them. Newber. All right, so that is it for this live stream. Thank you so much to everyone for coming to it. Thanks for all the questions. I'll have to do another one eventually. I know I spend too long in between live streams. If you have any more questions, you can put them in the comment section of the video and I'll try to answer them, or look up the other videos if you're interested in them, and please subscribe to the channel. Roblox, what's your favorite book in the Legends Throne trilogy, Heir to the Empire? So until next time, I'm Jonathan, and thank you for watching.